Hey fellow flight simmers, Bandit here, welcome to the Bandit Flight Simmer channel. Today we are doing another trip in the Cessna Citation CJ4, and the purpose of the trip today is just to go over why I think this is one of the best airplanes to fly in the flight simulator, especially if you're using the Working Title modification, and I'll explain what that is. So a group called Working Title has made a modification to the CJ4 which enhances the functionality of the aircraft, especially the FMC RNAV and VNAV capability, and those two functionalities work pretty good in this aircraft and make it much more enjoyable to fly and much more predictable to fly. So I think it's one of the best aircraft right now in the simulator in terms of that functionality, and I'm including the CRJ recently released by Aerosoft. It has more hiccups in terms of LNAV, VNAV functionality and FMC usage. So this airplane really works well. So I'm going to demonstrate some of those features today, and the group at Working Title have done a fantastic job, and I guess they've done such a great job that recently they all got hired by Microsoft to work on the simulator. So keep it up, guys. Really enjoying flying this airplane. So let's hop in the cockpit and go over what we're planning for today's trip. Okay, here we are in the cockpit of the CJ4, and if you haven't figured it out, we are in Miami from the scenery, and we're going to be doing a quick trip from Miami to Key West. And I'm just going to go over what we're going to do on the trip here real quick, and I'll bring up a Navigraph chart just to show you. We're taking off out of Miami, and we are going to be doing the Manatee 2 off runway 9 down to Manatee, taking this airway down to Taser, and then it's directly to the initial fix for the RNAV runway 9 in Key West. So that's the outline of the trip, and what I'm going to demonstrate on this trip, I'll initially just do the departure, show you how that works. We'll take you next up to the level off, and then we'll come in and we'll set up for the approach, and I'm going to demonstrate setting up a hold prior to completing the approach. Then we'll do the RNAV approach. I'll show you how the functionality works for the missed approach and a hold in the missed approach, and then we'll come back around again for the RNAV approach. So lots of cool stuff on this trip, and I've already set up the airplane, we're already started, I've loaded up the FMC, everything is ready to go, and we're at the pre-takeoff portion of the trip. So let's just go through that and the departure, and then we'll get airborne. Okay, all we have to do now is the pre-takeoff checks. So I'm going to show you another functionality they've included in the simulator here, and I don't use it all the time. I have a PDF checklist that I just refer to. Makes it a little quicker, but they do have a checklist functionality in here, and so I'm at the before takeoff checklist, so let's just go through that. So TCAS, TARA, so we'll set that, and we'll put it in there. That's active, and so we'll complete that item. Radar is not required. Go round button push, so they have a takeoff go round functionality that you press this button here. They just modeled this button, that's not being used for anything, and or you can model a button on your joystick for that, which I have done. But I'll just press this button, and then you see it goes into takeoff mode, and you get a 10-degree pitch bar, and that's all it does is give you an initial pitch climb for the takeoff. So that's very useful. So that's complete. Battery amps, we checked that. That's behind the checklist. So minus 20. So we'll verify 20 or less. So that's good. Ice protection system, we don't need anything right now. It's in Florida. It's nice and warm. Pitot-static heat, we need those on though, so we'll turn those on. And exterior lights as required, so we'll turn on our strobe and our landing light. So there we go, that completes the checklist, and there we go. We will head out and take off. So I just wanted to show you that. I'm not going to use it throughout the flight, but that's another functionality they built into the simulator, the CJ4, to make it a bit more realistic. So let's head out and take off. Okay, so here we are lined up on the runway. Check our runway heading is aligned, and 09 2 and we're all set. So let's add some power and get going. T's and P's are good. Go to full power. This aircraft's got lots of power, especially when it's light, like today. Accelerates really fast. There's our airspeed's alive. Rotation already. Positive rate, gears up. We just go for our 10-degree pitch bars. There's our flap speed, flaps up. And above 400 feet we can engage the autopilot. So autopilot on, put it in nav mode. Flight level change, set our climb power. And we'll continue this climb at 230 knots for now. Looks good. So we'll check our FMC RNAV is active, autopilot's active, flight level change at 230 knots is good, and we're in climb power. So post takeoff check, gears up, flaps are up, and climb power is set. So that's it. So we're going to climb up to 5,000 feet. And this aircraft climbs pretty fast. We're doing 4,000 feet a minute, so it'll be a quick level off here. Following our LNAV track, no problem.
Altitude.
So with this aircraft, you don't have an auto throttle, so that's the one thing you have to manage. So the autopilot will do everything else, but you have to manage the throttle to control your speed. So we don't want to go above 250, so I'm going to start bringing back the throttle now to keep that speed under control. Okay, so there we are, level off 5,000, still on our LNAV track, and speed is good, it's under control, and let's just say we can clear to flight level 220 for our final altitude. So I'll dial that in. We'll go back to flight level change. It's going to take the speed we're currently at. We want to climb at 250. Set that in, and then all I gotta do is add the power back to our climb position, and it will climb at 250 up to 220 on our LNAV track, and you can see that's all active in the autopilot. So it works very well on these RNAV departures, and never had any issues with the functionality for these type of departures. If there's any altitude constraints too, you can actually engage VNAV, and it will, if you have an adder below, say here a balloon of 10,000 feet, you can actually engage VNAV, and it will level off at 10,000 feet and keep you from busting through that altitude. So very capable system for doing RNAV departures. So I'll check in with you again at top of climb, and we'll set up for the approach into Key West. So here we are, level off, coming into Key West, just looking out the window, enjoying the beautiful scenery. And get back inside the airplane here, and see we're coming up. We're getting close to Manatee, which is going to be our top of descent. And so we need to get the approach loaded in, so I'll just go over the approach real quick here. We're going to be doing the RNAV approach, runway 9. We're going to be coming in by a strap, so we'll load that in, and we'll follow this RNAV track around to the runway. So let's load that in first. So we go to our arrival departure, and we'll pick the RNAV runway 9 by a strap, and we will execute that. And you see we lose our line after taser here, so we need to close up that discontinuity. So we have taser and strap, so let's just bring strap below taser to clean that up. And there we go, and there's our top of descent point now, just after taser. But as we're setting up for the approach here, ATC tells us that we're going to have to do a hold or head back to Miami because an aircraft blew a tire on the runway. So I really don't want to head back to Miami, so we'll take a hold. So there is no published hold on this approach other than the missed approach, so I would just request a hold at strap. to set up for the approach, and quite common. That's what they'll do. They'll give you a hold at the initial fix. So I would like to do it on the inbound 245 radial, and then we're ready to go for the approach when we get things cleaned up. So say they clear us that, hold inbound at strap 245, right hand turns, maintain 5,000, expect further clearance time will be 30 minutes from now. So let's set up the hold. So the way we do that is we go down to the index hold, and you see that there's already a hold for a goose L here, which is the misapproach hold, but we don't want that, so we want a new hold, and we want it to be at strap, so we'll select that. Now we got another hold at strap, and we're going to set it up the way we've been cleared. So we're cleared to hold 245, and we want to do right hand turns. Keep the timing at a minute, which is going to give us 5.5 nautical mile leg, but you can actually set either of these if you need a 2-minute hold, or if you need a 10-mile leg, you can change those. It's going to be a direct entry, max airspeed. That's based on the altitude we're at now, but really it should be 200 when we get down to 5,000 feet. And so we'll expect further clearance time 16:34. He said in 30 minutes, so 16:34. So that looks good. We'll execute that. And we'll look on our map display, and we see there's strap and right hand turns, hold inbound lined up with our inbound fix here. And he wants us to hold at 5,000 feet. Now how do we rectify that? Well, if we go to the legs page, there's no altitude restrictions, but we can put one in at strap of 5,000 for the hold. So let's put that in there. And there we go. And look, now our top of descent's recalculated, and it's come right up ahead of us here. So just in time we got that in. But it's not a big deal. If you had to, if you were high, you could descend back down and capture the VNAV if you needed to. So we coming up close to our top of descent, and we'll get ready for that. So we're cleared to hold at that position via our inbound route to maintain 5,000. So I'm going to set 5,000 feet. And there we go. And I'm going to engage VNAV because I'm going to want it to fly VNAV. So now you see VNAV alt has become active because we are prior to our top of descent, and path is armed in white here, and that's going to switch to active, should switch to active when we hit the top of descent point. So let's see what happens there. So there we got top of descent flashing, coming up to that point. You see this little star represents our descent path, and it's going to go target this donut, which is the rate of descent it's calculated for that path. And so what it's done is it is calculated a 3-degree path to get us to that point at strap. And so that's the rate of descent. It's calculated based on that. And all I need to do to keep my speed is bring back the power a little bit. So I'm going to try to stay as close as I can to 250. And the descent here, and there we go. So just manage your speed with power, and it will follow this track, and we should level off at 5,000. The only thing we need to worry about is slowing down to 200 knots as we enter the hold. So what I'll do is I'll check in with you as we're entering the hold and see how that all worked out. Okay, so here we are again, just coming into strap, 7,000 feet. We are slowing down to 200 knots. Still on our VNAV path, and so the VNAV profile is not based on an idle descent. So I was keeping power up to descend at 250 knots, and then when I got about 10 miles back from strap, I just brought the power back to idle, and that allowed me to bleed off the speed to get down to 200 knots here. So that's a nice thing about the VNAV functionality. It's not based on an idle descent. It gives you a little bit of lower end on the power setting, so you can adjust your speed accordingly, and that's basically what you're doing, is you're just adjusting power for speed on the VNAV descents. So leveling at 6,200 knots. Now it should be a direct entry, so we should cross the fix and do a right-hand turn and pick up this right-hand racetrack pattern for the
altitude.
Hold. So let's see how that works out. I find the functionality of the holds in this aircraft are generally pretty good. They're not always perfect, but they more or less fly the racetrack pattern and do the appropriate entry. So so we'll see what it's like here, but it is better than most aircraft in the simulator, that's for sure. So just leveling off 5,200 knots. Have to bring some power up as we level off to keep that speed. So slowly adding some power. And you can see the track is shifted to an outbound from strap there, and it shows distance to strap of 22 miles. So it is, normally you would just cross the fix and then continue with the right-hand turn. It's elected to go a little bit left just to kind of pick up this racetrack a little bit more, so that's fine, not a big deal. And I'll just zoom in on the racetrack here, and so it's just slightly off, but it's doing a pretty good job. And so I got my power set. I'm maintaining close to 200 knots here. So let's go through the setup for the approach. So I'm just going to brief the approach real quick. So we're coming in by the RNAV approach, runway 9, and final approach course is 093. We're going to be crossing Bussy at 1500. We're going to go down to LNAV VNAV minimums of 425 feet. We'll set that shortly. So if you weren't VNAV capable, you could only do the LNAV portion. You'd have to use an MDA. In this case, we're going to say this aircraft is VNAV capable. So we're going to use the decision altitude of 425. And I'm not a CRJ pilot. I really don't know if this aircraft is certified for LNAV VNAV approaches. I assume it probably is, but anyway, that's what we're going to use for this demonstration. So that'll be our minimums, and then in the venomous approach we're going to climb to 3,000 to Burpee via 077 track to Goose Hill and hold as published. So that's the approach we're going to be doing, and I verified that all those legs were correctly coded. So Chet's at New Busby are all 1,500 or above, and we have the runway 53 feet, and then we have the missed approach with Burpee, Goose Hill, hold at Goose Hill 3,000 or above. So that was all correctly coded in the FMC, so we're ready to go for the approach. And you can see it's flying the hold here pretty good. And so what I'll do is I'll check in with you. We're going to do one turn to the hold here, and I'll check in with you when we're ready to start the approach. Okay, so here we are. It's been doing a great job of flying the hold here, and we're just past strap again. We're heading outbound, and we've been cleared for the approach via strap. So what we're going to do is exit the hold, and there's just an exit the hold key here, and what it should do is just fly shortest route to strap to pick up the approach. So I'll exit the hold. Exit cancelled. Right away it's done a right hand turn to go to strap, and now it's cut out the rest of this hold portion here, and that's what it's supposed to do. So I find most of the aircraft in the sim can't do that, so they usually continue along the entire hold pattern and exit it, and sometimes when they exit it, it doesn't even pick up the next track, so it's doing a great job. So all we got to do is make sure when we cross strap that it does pick up the next portion of our leg to Chet's. So while it's doing that, I'm going to show you another feature here real quick, and that is the chart feature. So if I go to charts, select lower menu, and these are the charts I have available from Navigraph if you have a Navigraph subscription. And I can pick up the RNAV runway 9 and it'll load up. And there it is. And then we have that now for a reference when we need it. So just clear that out. So we're coming up to strap, and it should just pick up this track, and we'll see how it goes. And there it goes. It's overshot the turn a little bit, but generally not too bad. It's going to pick up the track. It'll recorrect back, and we are going to Chats. So yeah, it's done the correct procedure, with just a slight overshoot of the track, but not a big deal. So now we're going in, we're still LNAV, autopilot's armed, LNAV is active, and VNAV alt is active. We're still in VNAV. And you can see our little snowflake has come back, and it's showing the VNAV path predicted for doing the approach. And if we zoom out, you can see it's calculated top of descent right around Chats to continue along that VNAV path down to Busby, where we'll start the approach. So what I can do, since we're on the approach, I'll use this chart here. You can see 1,500 feet is the minimum altitude all the way up to Busby. So, and we can navigate the chart with this little, so 1,500 feet at Busby there. So I can set that in my altitude, because that's the lowest altitude I can now go to for the approach. So I set that in 1,500 feet, and VNAV alt is active, path is armed, and it will follow that path down to 1,500 feet. And as we get closer, it'll arm the approach. So I'll show you how that works when we get a little closer. Okay, we're just coming up to Chats and our top descent point for the RNAV approach. You can see even on the chart here, it now depicts that we're on the active portion of the chart, our position of the aircraft. So VNAV path has now become active, and VNAV alt for 1,500 feet is armed. So I started a descent, so I need to bring back my power to keep my speed under control, and it's going to fly a nice easy descent, so that we arrive at Busby around 1,500 feet for the rest of the approach. So I'll just control my speed with the power, and I'll check in with you as we're getting close to Busby here. Okay, so now we're lined up on final. Got the power at idle. Need to start thinking about slowing down here. I can use a speed brake if I need to.
Altitude.
And I don't want to level off at Busby, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to arm the approach. And you're going to see approach arm, so it's captured the LNAV approach and it's captured the glide path approach. And now I should be able to set my missed approach altitude at 3,000 feet. But altitude. The aircraft should continue on the VNAV descent because we're captured glide path for the approach. So yeah, so we're approaching Busby here. I'm going to start configuring. So gear down. First notch of flap is good for the speed. You can see Key West Airport right there. And we're below the speed for full flap, so we'll get full flap out. There's Busby at 1,500 feet. And continuing on the approach. So now I didn't put my ref speed in for this, but it's about 115 knots typically for this aircraft. But you can put your ref speed up. So power is set, so we're looking good. Now, as we're coming in here, say ATC tells us aircraft is just stuck on the runway there, so we are going to have to go around. So just he's going to tell us to fly the published missed approach. So we're coming through 1,000 feet. So 1,000 feet, we're stabilized, and 3,000 foot is set for our missed approach. So we're good to go. Our missed approach is coded in there, so all we have to do is hit go around, and we'll follow that procedure. So we'll just wait for the tower to call the go around and go from there. So the tower says, yeah, it looks like he's not going to get off the runway, so can you carry out the missed approach? So we'll carry out the missed approach. So you can hit this up here, which is your go around, and you got go around flashing. I'll apply climb power and positive rate, gears up, and we'll go to takeoff flap. Airspeed's increasing, climbing out, 3,000 foot is set, all looks good. From our speed brake is in, and so next notch of flap can come up. And so gear is up, flaps are up, and we'll set climb power, and looks good. Aircraft's accelerating, coming up to 3,000 feet, and I will select flight level change, and we'll select nav for, there we go, leveling off slightly. It's because I was late at selecting flight level change there, but bring my power back, control the speed, stay below 250, and the autopilot is armed, altitude is armed, and LNAV is armed, so we are good. And I'll keep it below 250 with the power, and we're following our LNAV track to Burpee. So that is good. So basically, it did a good job there. The only mistake was my part, where I was just slow in activating flight level change. Because of that, we blew through the altitude slightly. So, but we got it on. It captured the altitude, and we just went about 100 feet above. So that's not too bad. But that you need to get that flight level change mode on, because in go around mode, it's just flying at pitch mode, and it will keep climbing no matter what you have set for your altitude here. It's not going to capture it. So, as far as I know, anyway. So it'll continue out this LNAV track, and we're going to do a hold at Goosell and see how that works, and then we'll set it up for the RNAV approach again. Okay, so now we're approaching the published hold at Goosell here, and you can see it on the chart. It's left-hand turns, and we're going to be coming in from this direction, so we should be doing a parallel entry, and we can check it. We don't have to, it's already programmed as part of the missed approach, so we don't have to do anything. We can go into the hold page just to see it. So it is hold at Goosell. It's going to do a parallel entry. It does have the correct speed, 200 knots for this altitude, and it's going to be doing 1 minute timing, left-hand turns on an inbound at 267. So it's all coded correctly, and so let's see how it does with this hold. So we're pretty close to our speed, and let's watch how it does. Typically on the parallel entries, it does go a little off, but it does more or less follow a parallel entry. So you see here turning to the left, and normally at this point I'd be going, what's it doing? It's not supposed to do that, but it's going back to the right again. So it's going to fly out. Normally what it should do is fly out this track, do this turn, and then come back in, intercept, and then continue around like that. And that's what it's going to do, but for some reason it just veers off to the left here initially. So that's the hold for the missed approach here. We'll just follow it a little bit longer and see if it gets established good. We'll even speed up the sim rate here just to speed things up a little bit. So that's double sim rate right now, so it's just a little faster, but just to save some time. And so it comes back, turns inbound, and it's going to intercept that inbound track. That's correct. And it's going to now fly the left-hand turns. So this is where you would be coming up to the point where you're going to be establishing the hold, and then you continue flying this hold. So it did not a bad job, really. For the most part, I would say it did a pretty good job. So bring it back down to normal sim rate. So the only thing is I don't think it should have flown off to the left here and then come back in and intercept it like that. I think it should have stayed on this track on the right-hand turn and then come back and intercept it. But it's not too bad. It's better than most planes in the simulator anyway. So now we're going to go around and do the approach again. So we have nothing in the FMC for the approach, so we have to load it in real quick. So I'm just going to show you that. So we go back to our arrival departure page, and we already have it in there, so we'll select it again, the RNAV approach, and this time we can do it via Sting, just for something different, and we can execute that. Go back to the legs page, and we see we got a discontinuity with Sting starting off the approach after that. So we have that loaded back in, and we're ready to go. So let's say at some point we're cleared out of the hold here, and we can head to Sting. So the way you can exit the hold, and it should go back to Chet's, but then you got the discontinuity. So because there's discontinuity, what I'm going to do is just go direct to Sting. So if we go to the direct to function, Sting is one of our options there. So if I select that, and it draws a line out to Sting, and let's just yeah, so there we go. If I execute that, gets rid of all the hold, cleans all that up, and puts our track out to Sting. And then off we go, and now we can resume the approach. So the approach is going to be the exact same thing here. It's going to, we're going to be coming in via Sting this time. You can see I have another green top of descent forecast now again. So we're all set to pick up where we were last time for the approach. So what I'll do is I'll save you having to follow me around for this whole thing, and I'll join you again on final, and then we'll just do the final portion of the approach again. See you in a few minutes. Okay, so here we are on final again. We are just coming up to bus B, and we're all configured. Gear is down, flaps are at full, and our approach speed 110. Got it loaded in this time as a reference, and so we're just continuing the approach. There's the airport there. Got our minimums 430. You can only set it by 5, so I just rounded it up. So 425 is on the approach, and we'll just round it up to 430. So crossing bus B at 1500 feet. Everything looks good, and altimeter is set, and we got our missed approach altitude of 3,000 feet set. So continue on the approach here. Key West. It's nice and stable. Just hop outside and get a external view. It's pretty nice here coming into So 1,000 feet, and yeah, missed approach altitude is set. Good to go. Speed's a little high. So I'll just get a view set up here for my landing. it does a great job flying the LNAV VNAV approach here, that's for sure. So just using power to control the speed. We're 100 above.
500.
Good.
Minimums.
There's minimums. The runway is visual. And at this point, I would disengage the autopilot. We just hand fly it into a landing here. There we go. Speed brakes out. Check the brakes. Looking good. So I'll just exit this taxiway here. So another nice thing about the CJ4 is with its performance capabilities, it's good for most airstrips. You can easily land and take off in 3,000 feet. So you can use a lot of airports with this aircraft. So I'll just taxi clear the runway here and just come to a full stop. And set the parking brake, and we'll call it an end here. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed seeing some of the features of this aircraft. I think it has great functionality, as I said before, in the use of the FMC and the LNAV VNAV, and definitely makes this airplane very flyable in a lot of places. So, and obviously it can do a great ILS approach too, but just adding that great LNAV VNAV capability for the RNAV approaches gives you a lot more options. And really makes this aircraft great to fly. I think the Working Title guys have done an awesome job. Keep it up, and they're always adding functionality and improvements to this airplane. So it's great. I'm running the latest rendition, which is version 12, and I'll put a link in the description to where you can get this download, and it's easy to install. Just follow the instructions, and they have a great guide as well to go along with operating this aircraft. So I think it has lots of great features, functions really well, and it's one of the few airplanes where I'm quite confident to fly it on places like VATSIM, where you're going into a busy environment. You're not having to disengage the autopilot and hand fly the airplane all the time because it's not doing what you expect it to do. This airplane pretty much does what you expect it to do 99% of the time. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial video, and if you enjoyed it, hit thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you want to see other videos like this, and I'm also doing a series on flying a Diamond DA62 around the world, so feel free to join me for that. That's a great series. We left Canada and we started off in London, Ontario, and now we're in Europe, so that's a great series. So subscribe to the channel if you'd like to follow that. If you'd like to see other videos like this or anything specific, please leave a comment and I'll try to respond to that. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Bandit out.